So at Cloudalize, we also raised around, at that time when I was still in the company, around 3 or 4 million euros, mainly from business angels. So the very start was actually from zero, knocking on the doors of the neighbors and asking family members if they are willing to fund a bit of our venture. What kept me awake 6 months ago was, of course, the funding round, which was not sure that it was going to go through. So, you have X months left runway to pay your people. So that time, that was keeping me awake.
Welcome everybody back at Beyond the Blend episode 8. A weekly podcast by Albert with real talk on tech startups. We are happy to open our doors and give you some insights in what we do. And along the way, we invite interesting guests to tackle interesting topics for startups and scale-ups. I'm checking in from my home today. It is a Wednesday night before this goes live. This week, money. Yes, indeed. We will be talking about funding for startups. It's a very sensitive, delicate, and often not so talked about topic. There is some secrecy always along the way. There are what happened. There is what's written in the newspapers. There is what really happened behind the scenes. And honestly, it's not so easy to get true insights in how this world works. And I have the pleasure this week to have Daan Moreels from the company Magnax in our podcast. Let's give it away already. Daan and his company Magnax were in the newspaper this week because they have raised 20 million euros. Whoa, that's quite some money. I think you can actually literally buy the full street where I was living back in the days when I was young with that money. Holy shit. Daan and his team at Magnax are working on yokeless axial flux motors. Indeed, that sounds complex, and it is, because it is a deep tech startup that is working on new technology for the new generation of electric motors. These motors can be used in electric cars, which we by now all know, but they can also be used in, for example, flying taxis. So it's true to say that Daan and his team are working on the future of mobility at its core. In my opinion, Daan is one of the most inspiring entrepreneurs from Belgium. Creating a deep tech startup is really not so easy. It requires a very high skill set from the whole team, but it also requires a very detailed and a very careful strategy on how you actually grow that technology and what partners you strategically partner with and how you find funding. Daan and I had the pleasure to present at the Innova conference a couple of months ago. And already there, actually, when the ideas for Beyond the Blend podcast were, let's say, brewing up, I already felt that he was able to talk in a very true, honest, and open way about many details of the company. And certainly for a deep tech startup where the technology at the core is extremely important and the strategy is more important, I believe, than many, many other startups. I really appreciate that approach. So I'm super happy that he was open to go on the podcast, and that exactly in the week when they announced their 20 million euro funding round. So this is an amazing opportunity for all of us to learn, and I was really happy to do the whole conversation. So I'm thrilled to get into the podcast with Daan, but as always, 5 minutes updates on Albert. Tomorrow is the 1st of September, and in Belgium that means school is starting again, and finally the business world is kicking in again. It's true to say that we had an amazingly busy summer at Albert's. The whole team has been working like crazy this whole summer. I'm super happy with all the results we gathered in this summer. We expanded the team with more than 5 people. We had a lot of work that was done on many different fields. For example, on ingredients, we managed on 2 months to get a full ingredient line, which was produced last week and which will be repacked this Friday. So that will be done, a full Albert's ingredients line. As I said in one of the previous updates as well, we have been working massively hard on producing machines. The machines are at the core of our whole process. It's the start of everything. No machines, no fun. And we really doubled down with the whole team on starting the production up at the west of the country here in Belgium. We have almost finalized the first machine this week and are then continuing with the next 4 already as we speak. So it's really kicking off now, and I cannot be more happy. So thank you to the whole team and our partner Dekimo of pulling this all off over the summer. At the same time, we are preparing ourselves for the UK launch with our partner SV365 and Change Please. We did fairs and we did further alignment of the businesses together. So I'm super curious to see the first machine go live at the end of September. there are two secret projects we have been working on over the whole summer and actually way before that as well. I'm super excited to share all the details with you in the next updates. To give you a first glimpse already as a scoop, firstly, I'm super proud. With the whole team, we have been working on a international brand integration and partnership. That sounds mysterious. Which brands are we partnering up with? Well, that will be revealed really soon. We have been doing all the legal works. We have been doing all the branding works. We have been doing all the food integration works. It has been an amazing job. Yesterday and the day before yesterday, we did all the microbiology testing on the firstly newly produced machine as well. So an amazing amount of work has been done there, and we can normally release it next week or the week after. So hang on a little bit and I will share it all with you here in the scoop. Same thing on the financial side. Actually funny because the topic this week with Daan is on funding rounds and funding for startups. And we have also closed a funding round ourselves. I'm allowed to give all the details very soon once we launch it all in the press. So hang on just a little bit longer and all these details on the funding round and the international brand deal will come your way here in the scoop in the next 2 weeks. So as I said, I'm super happy, proud of all the work we did. It's the 1st of September. We're going to kick in. We have closed the week with a little party with the whole team. Albert's birthday is in August, so we celebrated the birthday. Also a bit the closing of the summer, the milestones we have reached with the financial round, the brand deal, and all the others I've said. So it was time to gather everybody. We often actually work from different locations. We work from Antwerp, from Brussels, but also from the west of the country at the production side. So it's not that often that everybody is together. I'm delighted now that our team could grow to 15 people altogether, with including interns. So that's an amazing group of people, and we were able to get everybody together in Brussels. So here a picture of how that was. It was super nice. Good. Over to Daan. A true talk on funding, insights, a really honest conversation. Perfect Beyond the Blend. Enjoy. I love you all. Let's go. Okay, everybody. Welcome at Beyond the Blend, a podcast of Albert's where we try to look behind the tech startups and see what's inside. I am super happy today because Daan is with us, Daan Moreels. Welcome, Daan.
Thank you, Glenn. Nice to see you.
Yes, nice to see each other again. It's been a long time. I think 1.5 months or 2 months ago, we saw each other for the last time. So, Daan, I have a little intro for you prepared, of course, but I think it's fair to say that you are one of the leading deep tech developers or entrepreneurs, of the country here and beyond. I appreciated everything you do. To follow it through the media and through the social media, because somehow I even find it a bit, mysterious and a bit inspiring. So I'm very happy to have you here in the format of Beyond the Blend to learn a bit. Let's start with the headline, right? It was in the newspaper this week. So the newspaper headline said 20 million funding round for Magnax, which is the company you co-founded. I also know that you're involved in other companies, Traxial and Axial, and I know they're linked. So maybe my question to you would be, what is Magnax and what is your mission as an entrepreneur?
Yeah, thank you, Glenn. Indeed, Magnax is basically the company that we founded in 2015. The story, how it comes a bit later, I think. Basically, the original technology was already in development at Ghent University since 2010. So we could start a bit with some interesting research papers, and also there's also already a joint patent at that time. But Magnax is the company. It stands for Magnetic Axial. So in 2015, Peter, who I met at the school gate, so that's also a story that will come a bit later, was already working in his garage or his workshop. He likes a workshop, not garage, at that time. And at that time he was working on a big size version of a motor. We call it a generator because it was for a wind turbine application. And that's where we actually met at the school gate. Where do the other names come from? Traxial and Axial is at a certain point we started to understand that the base technology could be used for different applications. So we started with wind turbine applications. We saw, the market for wind is a bit conservative. They said, put it for 3 years on an existing wind turbine, and then we might be considered to use it. So we thought, okay, for a startup, that's not something that we can do. We started already getting incoming sales leads from other market applications, predominantly e-mobility. That's why we switched in 2017 the market development and the technology development towards smaller versions of the motors, high-speed motors for e-mobility markets. The problem then also was that there was in that market already an existing large company called Magna, which is one of the biggest tier ones, the biggest suppliers to automotive. And they, on exhibitions, they started to ask us, are you like the experimental division of Magna, or why are these names so comparable? And then we said, okay, we have to do something about branding. We are going to use the technology for different applications anyway. So just convert Magnax a bit to more like a financial holding, like a company whose aim or mission is to deploy companies using the base technology, but for different markets, maximally valorize the technology that we have developed already, and deploy different brands, different teams with different names in different markets. So that's where Traxel comes from. Traxel is traction, axial, focusing on automotive, ground and mobility, and axial is newer, a smaller startup, also related to our technology, which is called axial flux, focusing on aerospace. So that was one of the reasons. Now, why separate companies instead of like divisions? We also see that if you look at the Gartner hype curve, is that the automotive world or the electrification of automotive is already more mature. So it already passed through the hype situation. It had some difficult times already, and it's now already in a more structural growth situation. All the companies are on EV programs. Everybody knows EVs are the future, so this is already a pretty mature world with requests for quotations and so on. So there we have a separate team for. For aerospace, it's a bit different. So there, I feel we are still a bit in the hype situation. There will be still some difficult times ahead. So in terms of market timing, electric aerospace is a bit farther away. So the market timing is different. You also have a different kind of certifications and requirements in these fields. So that's also another reason why we wanted to separate the company. And also, this is strategic technology. We have to take into account the exit scenarios. So it means if you combine everything in one, an automotive company doesn't need the aerospace technology and so on. So it makes sense to already separate these things up front. So that's why we have created different companies under the umbrella of Magnax.
Yeah. Wow, you've touched already upon many things which are, I think, fairly impressive. So firstly, the maturity of the industries, or let's say at least the regulatory framework around the industries you work with. Yeah, it's almost the top tier you can find. We're speaking automotive, we're speaking windmills, we're speaking flying cars or flying taxis. Yeah, wow, what the fuck? So how is it almost even possible to navigate these fields? With the team you have, do you find that particularly difficult, or is it more like, well, we did it now in automotive and now we are going to continue? It feels a bit like the same game, or is that wrong?
Yeah, you have to make a bit of a difference between technology and product. If you are going to sell a product into a regulated field like automotive, it has to comply with a lot of things, a lot of certifications, a lot of regulatory stuff, and so on. So a finished product is different than a technology. Our job is to develop a new kind of technology, and together with our customers, we are evolving this technology towards market-ready products. So it means it's not only our responsibility to make sure that all the certifications are there, especially if you talk about production. You have a lot of in both fields, a lot of regulations that you have to comply with. So we stick to what we are good at, which is research and development, developing new technologies, and the road to manufacturing is something that we do with much bigger partners or the customers. They can also do it themselves. We feel that they're also really interested to take responsibility over the production, the manufacturing of also the motors, but the complete solution, of course. And as you can see, there are a lot of these companies who do have factories, they do have the workers there. They have to migrate from combustion engines to electric motors anyway. So they do have the capabilities and the processes to manufacture this. So this is a win-win for everybody. We make sure that there is interesting, strong technology that they can use as a competitive advantage, and they can do what they are really good at, which is manufacturing, which is developing finished products, integrating that in vehicles or aircraft. And as such, we go to the market basically.
Okay. It's crazy. I'm just wondering mainly like, how do you get started in this? I mean, I don't think anybody's born to say I'm going to do deep tech and market it to the biggest industries on earth. So how can Daan become entrepreneur? Daan, which is negotiating with the top tier producers or suppliers or clients from these huge industries. Like, how did you get there?
Well, initially, you never know what to expect, of course. You don't start with the idea, now I'm going to build a motor for automotive. You meet somebody, in my case it was Peter, he was working on a new technology in his garage. Out of his interest basically, we saw, okay, this has business potential, the world will need motors. Let's focus on a potential market, like at that time in wind turbine applications, which is less regulated. And you just start, and along the way, you are in touch with the market. They are working on the technology. You try to merge that, but you don't know what kind of product that you're going to make and in which market or who is going to buy it. Eventually, along the way, you are in touch with the market and you start to understand, okay, this technology has potentially a lot of value for this domain. They are really requesting it. You get a pull from the market. And then you have to be, of course, smart enough to say, okay, we have to switch to that market use case because we feel that there is really a market pull. They see specific benefits in our technology for their specific market application. And then basically it becomes more like a pull situation than a push situation. So you have to be very sensitive to what the market wants. And you have to also organize the abilities to also create the products or create the technology to the specifications or the requirements that they request, of course. So it comes a bit organically, depending on what kind of technology that you're working on and who you feel will see it as a must-have. And for us, by chance, it became automotive and now also aerospace. In aerospace, of course, weight is critical. So this technology that we have can be 3 to 4 times lighter for certain power applications. So if you can reduce a lot of weight, then it's basically a no-brainer for aerospace to use that, of course.
Definitely. And so I understand how from the technology you can get there, but you've mentioned the school gate. How the hell does a deep tech company start at a school gate? Or how did you get even to that school gate? Like what happened in that beginning phase?
Yeah, that's a good question. It's always a bit of a challenge for everybody to understand what you're good at and what you like to do in life, of course. If I ask people, most people still can't answer that very well. And for me, that was also a really important discovery phase. Back in the early days, when I was just out of university, I worked as an employee for certain companies, technology companies, like one American one, a really large enterprise. And there I already felt that, okay, this is not really something for me to be part of a process as a really small part of the process, following procedures and so on. I already felt, okay, I'm more like a creative guy, but I just can't kind of do it here. So at that time, I was working in BizDev, sales basically. So I could, after some years, already do my job in 2 hours per day, basically. So I had a lot of time left. And as a result, I found a new hobby, photography. And I started doing shoots, fashion shoots. And it became basically more like a freelancer kind of job. I was also already earning a bit of money with that. And that's where my first, touch with the being independent, being a freelancer came from. I have never seen in my youth or something, or my family, any form of being a freelancer, working for your own, let alone entrepreneurial. So from there, I didn't get it. So it came gradually for me. After some time, also met my former co-founders of my former startup, which is called Cloudalize. So they started a company. They were looking for somebody with a bit more sales experience. I just joined them because I was a bit bored. I just invited myself, so to speak. And it also became clear that after some time, there was no clear product or a market. So it also evolved into a technology startup. So we started working on a platform that deploys GPU accelerated cloud desktops, so basically virtual workstations. So that's, of course, in that venture, I learned a lot. I left that company mid-2016, and then not much later, I actually met my current co-founder, Peter Leinen, at the school gate. We were just picking up our kids, and I was standing next to him, and I asked, okay, what are you working on? I'm inventing a new kind of electric motor. And I thought, it will be something.
At the school gate? No, that's impossible.
Yeah, so I thought, okay, I have actually not much to do. Let's check out where it's located. It's in my workshop, not far from here. You can have a look at it. And I went to his garage and I saw, okay, this guy, it looks serious. This thing looks quite impressive. It was not finished yet. It was just like he was still working on it. But I listened to him, and he said, okay, he gave me an impression that he was already very deep into the technology. He knew what he was talking about, not on the level on only technology, but also the market use cases and so on. I did a bit of my due diligence, took contact at university, checked also with them, what do you think about the technology, and a lot of, does it have potential and so on. And then I had the feeling, okay, this can become something, and I knew Peter is a real inventor type. He likes working on technologies. He needed somebody who could take care of the business side, and that's how we basically started to work together. So that's how I got into Magnax. From my former company, also knew somebody who helped us a lot with the legal part, the corporate development part. That was Kester Ho. So I knew also that he was looking for a project, and that he's quite complementary with our skill set. I'm more the market guy, Peter the product guy, and Kester administration, legal things, financial things also. So that was quite complementary, and that's basically how the current co-founder team was created, actually.
Actually, it has... I didn't even know, but actually it has a lot of similarities with me in some ways, because today the company, the management were three. So it's Stefan, Hans, and me. Hans is CTO, but with Hans, I had a first startup, which was called Bebotics. In that startup, we basically connected photo booths to the cloud, which was back then a bit new, and connected it to Instagram and Facebook so that it had marketing opportunities. But actually, you also started in photography, and also on the aspect of not in your family, that there is not an entrepreneurial track, let's say, in your family, or let alone entrepreneurial, or even, let's say, having your own business or something like that. It's also the same for me. But I always then also add, however, my grandparents were farmers, all of them. So somehow they are entrepreneurs in their own way.
Yeah, that's true.
But yeah, there are some similarities there. But then, okay, so I really clearly see how that got together. And I think it's fair to say that it was very gradual in a way. But then I still wonder, when you explain it, it sounds gradual. But then when you then look at the numbers, like this week and also 20 million euro funding round, I think it's fair to say that's a big round. Certainly they always say in the US there's more money, in Europe they're more conservative. Okay, I guess often that's true, but that means 20 million is a decent number. I know that often these things are a bit inside the company walls, but I just want to ask you, could you share for us some learnings, some failures maybe, in how that fundraising came along all the way from the beginning to all the way today, which is from 2015 to today. We also started in 2015. So, I mean, that's 7 years. That's a big chunk of work. Because on the first side, starting a deep tech company sounds almost like Mission Impossible. You're literally going to compete with the Teslas of this world or these type of businesses. So whatever you can share there, I think will be very valuable for anyone who's listening.
Yeah, luckily, of course, I had a bit of experience with funding in my former company. So at Cloudalize, we also raised around, at that time when I was still in the company, around 3 or 4 million euros, mainly from business angels. So the very start was actually from zero, knocking on the doors of the neighbors and asking family members if they are willing to fund a bit of our venture.
Okay.
I remember at that time it was also via win-win loans, which is in Belgium a way to invest a bit in a company, but the government gives a bit back via the tax regime.
Yes.
It's also some sort of convertible loan where you loan something to a company and eventually it can convert into stock. So I remember that was a lot of work at that time to get the first 100K. Then it goes a bit easier, of course, if you have something more to prove, to demonstrate, you have a bigger team and so on. So I had the luck, of course, that I also had a bit of money collected from that first venture that I could use also for Magnax. So initially, a big chunk of the money invested in the beginning was from me, myself, and the founding team, actually. So we invested ourselves quite a bit of money in the company. And then the next step was indeed we used Convertible Notes. We had some contacts with business angels, and a Convertible Note basically says, okay, this is a loan agreement. You lend us 50K, for instance, and there is a cap in the Convertible Note which says, okay, sometime in the future it will be converted to stock, and this will be the cap valuation of which you can be sure it will be converted at the maximum. So with that, we had quite a bit of, I don't remember exactly how much, but I think a few million euros via Convertible Notes.
Oh, really? Okay, that's a lot. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, something like that.
But all in small chunks, then I understand, right?
Small chunk, but also one bigger chunk. So we had a contact with more like an enterprise who was really interested in the technology. They saw also business value in this technology. So they were also one of our first investors, also via the Convertible Note, which eventually we collected everything, and then it resulted in the first capital raise that we did, or the first Series A in December 2020, where we did a 16 million capital increase at that time. So Convertible Notes is a really interesting thing to use. You can work with somebody else's money without big contracts, without capital increases, without dilution. Work with the money, and basically along the way, work on your armor, on your weapons, collect demonstrations, data, sign up customers, and so on. And then at a certain point, you do the conversion, and you hope, of course, that the valuation will be as high as possible, of course.
Yeah. But you did include a cap always, because we also worked a lot with convertibles so far. Like you say, it goes a bit easier. You don't need to go to the notary. You don't need to get a lot of paperwork, basically, and also negotiations, which can drag a long time. Yes. But there were always caps included that somehow the investor had a security that they knew, at least they knew what to expect in the worst case.
They like that number, of course. We made sure. So, but learnings, what we learned, of course, is that this is never a single man job. It's basically the whole company who is building the tools and the weapons, basically, to give a certain valuation to the company. It is basically the whole startup team is involved in that. But for us, especially the last rounds, it was mainly, or the process was mainly myself and Kester who were working on this. So especially for a number of months, it's almost a full-time job
Yes.
My responsibility was mainly to build up the value proposition, create the investor deck. Basically looking for potential investors, creating marketing material which makes the startup and the technology sexy to also attract potential investors, because all the investors that we have got in the company came to us, but of course you have to first attract them, and you can do that with strong messaging, trying to explain the value of the technology on a simple way, also use the press a little bit and so on. So that's an important part, of course, the pre-marketing. Then you attract them, you still have to convince them. The last round, I remember we were maybe a bit lucky because one of the investors came via one of our customers. So the customer was using motors for their electric vehicle, basically for a drone. And he said, okay, this is quite interesting technology. I would like to diversify a bit and also enter the automotive world a bit. So maybe I can also invest in your company. But the other investor was the government. They have to go through a whole process, of course, where we have to help our internal sponsor to sell our company towards a lot of people, eventually also the board of directors. So that was quite a bit of work to eventually convince everybody. And then the second part, where Kester is mainly taken care of, is then the negotiation part and then the contracting part, and which is also another a few months, sometimes a half year that it can take until you get to the final point, which is the closing. So the whole process, you can easily say it takes like 9 to 12 months.
Yes.
From zero to A to Z. Yeah.
And it's so often underestimated. And including us, we always very carefully managed that timing. And we were, of course, so happy to be supported by very, kind investors. We so far never had a very aggressive investor that somehow, I don't know, as you read it in the books, try to play tricks on you, etc. But we also had our portions of night. For example, an investor who cancels the night before we go to the notary or stuff like that. We actually had that twice. So it's never done before it's done. And you just have to be prepared that it takes an extremely long time. It shouldn't always be like that, but I think the mindset should be that it is like that. Any horror stories you can share or not?
Well, to get back to your point, never rely on one plan. Always have backup plans. Start very early. The earlier, the better. In our last round, we also started at a point where we said, okay, we basically don't need the money now, but we see an opportunity. So just basically go for it. Don't try to time it too much if you have an opportunity today. But of course, since it takes that long, it was still a bit stressy, so to speak. And indeed, also in this round, there were some issues with an investor who didn't want to sign. These are things that keep you awake at night, of course.
We
have X months to survive. We know that the money will be gone in month X. That keeps you awake. And if you see, okay, it's not going very well, you already start thinking about the worst case. The lead investor is going to think, okay, what's happening here? I'm not going to do it anymore. Everything is being delayed, and then the market situation was becoming worse and worse. As everybody knows, this year it was not getting better for startups. So that was a bit stressy. But for the rest, it's a continuous work in progress. So you get in touch with investors, you pitch them, you get how do you say that? You have to be bold in your marketing. But it's the rejection is continuous, basically.
Exactly.
Time after time, rejection continues. It's part of the game. And the reasons why are not very clear. Sometimes they are not relevant, just because. And you learn from that. You learn to get used to that, and you have to continuously be in a modus of, okay, next, and eventually
Exactly.
you have a match. And the match is a company who really has the investment mindset or the focus area that they want to invest in, because for some reason they are interested in, for instance, in our case, electric motors, or electrification is for them a very important aspect in their investment mindset. And also the market timing, of course. Some funds don't have money anymore; they are fully funded. Some funds are just opening. Then it's of course a very good timing for you. Sometimes the market conditions are really bad. They are just investing in nothing because they don't know what will happen. Will there be a big recession or not? Then you have to wait a few months until that worry goes away. Sometimes it's a bit luck, but try to get rid of the luck aspect by making sure that you have enough backup plans and enough people working on that aspect also.
Yes.
That's why here at Magnax, the co-founding team has been very actively working on the funding aspect, while we have really great operational teams that are only focusing on, or mainly focusing on the operational aspect, product development, the business aspect. And that's a bit luck that we had, that we could organize it as that, is to have time available as founders to really go deep into the funding aspect, and being able to put the responsibility of the operational aspect to people who are really good at that, specialists and managers.
And how fast was that evolution? Because it's, of course, in the beginning, you probably had to do everything because there was only you and Peter. But how fast, because I understand you evolved more towards focusing then on funding aspects, investor relations. How fast was that? So it's 7 years. How fast could you say that you could make a switch on focus?
Well, it took a few years until we found our way. So it's only in 2018 that we had our first employees. So we grew, I think, in 2018 from 3 to 7 people, and then 2019 from 7 to 19 people or something. So you start feeling that you need a bit of management or a structure once you are over 15 people. At the beginning, everything is controllable. Everybody is sitting next to you. In the very beginning, you are responsible for, you wear many hats. So in my case, it was sales, marketing, IT, recruitment, corporate development, and so on. With everything, I like that. I'm a generalist. So you need generalists in the very beginning. But over time, you grow, you start to understand, okay, management, maybe it is necessary. You have to create structures. In our case, you also have to have an ISO 9001 structure and so on. So you have to create responsibilities for certain domains, and as such, you have to organize it. You start creating also OKRs, as objectives and key results, to also, if the team grows, it becomes much more difficult to make it clear for everybody, okay, this is your responsibility, this influences this guy with this responsibility. So you have to start organizing, and we did it via OKRs, in what direction we're going to evolve, who is responsible for what, and in what time frame things have to been done actually. So that's the challenge. So for me, I have been giving hats away along the time to specialists, to really good managers, also from the domains that we are active in, like automotive. So Mark Bill, for instance, at a certain point we said, okay, we had like a joint responsibility as a CEO, Kester and myself mainly, but we said, okay, we are not really specialized in that. We are not in the core managers, so we have to look for a solution. And we found a solution by attracting somebody who is already, who was working in that industry, who knew how to scale manufacturing operational aspects, and also was good in a management thing, which is an art by itself. It's quite different compared to entrepreneurship. It's very different. So we as entrepreneurs, we are not by definition good managers. So that's why we decided, okay, we have to set up a management structure. It doesn't have to be us who are responsible for these key domains. And luckily we found some good people who are now taking care of that.
I think that is both an achievement, but also, how to say, it's also brave, because I think many people underestimate it's a bit your baby. So there are a lot of mixed emotions involved. Do I want to let it go or not? There is pride. Oh, why am I not the boss anymore? Or yes or no. So that's kind of a mixed situation. And then also to find somebody who's really good, because, okay, you could say, okay, you know what? It's good. Somebody else is going to do it. You could realize that it's actually better, but then you still need to find somebody that you actually find also better, that also wants to come do the job, because you want to do it early on, but probably early on, you're not that great and sexy yet for the talented people that you actually then envision. So I think that is an extremely cool move that you could have pulled that off, let's say, because that probably, was a critical one to get this headline in the newspaper now, which I'm happy that you shared, was also hard. I'm so happy you shared that, because many people see the newspaper and they think it's all fantastic, but in reality, it's a continuous no. It's no.
It's a continuous battle, highs and lows, and that's part of the game. Without the lows, you don't have the highs, but it's definitely not an easy trajectory. Also, the trajectory, because basically you have to go from taking responsibility or multiple responsibilities to more like a coaching modus, because others are taking responsibility for certain processes. So this was also for me a difficult switch, but luckily the team helped me a lot with that. And eventually the result is that you can really focus on what you are good at. So in my case, it's building the value proposition, setting up new things, selling the company basically, which is very important, of course, for funding. And also focusing more on the strategic aspects, the future growth, like deploying multiple companies, and also building new teams for new companies. That's also one of my current responsibilities at the moment. So it's not that
it's crazy.
I don't have to do anything.
No. I think in opposite, you have the word company in plural. That means quite some work. Is there? You shared some stuff that keeps you awake at night if there's a hiccup in the funding round, or if there's a stress point. Are there other stuff that keeps you awake? Or on the positive side, what keeps you awake as a big dream? Like Magnax is clearly on the road to become a big player in this field of electrification. I mean, is there anything already beyond that horizon, or still within that horizon that you want to share?
What kept me awake 6 months ago was, of course, the funding round, which was not sure that it was going to go through. So, you have X months left runway to pay your people. So that time, that was keeping me awake. Today, the money is there, but it doesn't mean that it becomes easier, because now you have the responsibility to use the money, to leverage the money, and use it for future growth, basically. So building the right processes, building the right resources, or attracting the right resources, like hiring the right good engineers. That's always a challenge, of course. So that's one of the main responsibilities of our HR team right now. And also keep an eye on the priorities. So you have the money, but you have to use it on the best way possible, which means you have to have clarity about your priorities in the company. Longer term, mid-term, short term. So because you can burn a lot of money, if you have the wrong priorities, you just disappear, basically. So this search for strong product market fit, or the right fit of your product in the market, is also it remains very important, of course. And it's there where you're going to use the money. We are going to use the money for, of course. In the meantime, but we have a good management team for those priorities. We, of course, are still involved in that. So we revisit the strategy from time to time to make sure that we are taking the continuously changing market conditions into account, of course. That's also important. The adaptivity of a startup has to remain there. It's not because you have a plan and you have a decent amount of people that this is the way we are going to continue and just build it out. You still have to make sure that you are adaptive enough based on what's happening around you.
Yes.
To give you one example of that, like last year, our number one competitor was acquired by Mercedes. That
Okay.
changed a bit of our strategy at that time, because at that time we started to understand, okay, maybe this technology that we are working on is a bit more strategic than we thought. We saw, okay, Mercedes is acquiring this technology. They're also using it to retrofit their factories to basically convert people who are used to working on or manufacturing combustion engines are now going to produce electric motors. So it also had a bit of a political aspect in Germany in this case, and so on. So strategically, that made a bit of a little switch in our strategy, actually. Yeah.
Okay. I could imagine that morning when it's in the press and then this little Slack or Teams message, guys, we need to talk.
Yeah.
Okay, good. Daan, thank you very much. I really like that you could share some stuff behind the headlines, certainly exactly in the week when actually these headlines are out. So massive thank you. I think it's going to inspire many people. I think it's going to inspire many people who are maybe still in that no phase, that can keep believing, not only believe, but that can work towards some yeses and further success. So thank you very much. Good luck with everything over there at Magnax.
Glenn, and good luck there.
Yes,
Bye-bye.
thank you very much.
Ciao.
Bye-bye. Ciao, ciao.